like this is a little bit more broad as a mental model. And here, leverage really just means like a force multiplier.
Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week's book of the week is... Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone. So that was a short clip from my interview with the author of this week's book of the week. That is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant by Erik Jorgensen. Now, it was a fantastic interview, a lot of fun, really great insights. So go ahead and check the comments and the notes below. We'll have a link to the podcast. You can either listen to it or watch it. And trust me, considering it was at the end of the day and both of us decided to crack open a beer, it definitely got a little bit out of hand, but in all the right ways.
And of
Mr.
course,
Pancakes is
naturally,
great.
he decides
Yeah.
to just lift his leg up and start licking his ass on camera. But you know, hey, it's 2020, man.
Erik decided to write the book that many people wish had been written, which is essentially curating and distilling all the life lessons, whether it's venture capital, startups, or just even the way of living life from Naval Ravikant down into a book, because there's so much great material, whether it's interviews, podcasts, or articles about Naval's wisdom, but it's not in one place. And what started out as just a project where Erik was essentially compiling a lot of notes and turned into him posting on Twitter and getting some feedback on whether he should write this book or not, it turned into a real project. And of course, considering that Erik is a product leader and an innovator in the startup space, he took the same approach to designing this fantastic book, which I love the way it was designed. Aside from the thoughtful curation, the design that you find in here, the artwork, even the little boxed out quotes, and the way that he designed the appendix in terms of how the knowledge is going to be segmented out and categorized was fantastic and really enjoyable. So Naval Ravikant is an entrepreneur, a philosopher, and an investor who is really well known worldwide for his first principle thinking in terms of how do you invest, and more importantly, how do you live a fulfilling and happy life.
At the end of the day, I do think, even despite what I said earlier, life is really a single player game. It's all going on in your head. You know, whatever you think, you believe will very much shape your reality, both from what risks you take and what actions you perform, but also just your everyday experience of reality.
And so Erik compiled that down into this book, which is full of fantastic information and wonderful insights and wisdom. I'm actually reading it for the second time because I've enjoyed it that much. And of course, the forward is by Tim Ferriss, who's a good friend of Naval. Now, there's a lot of great lessons in the book, but since we're getting close to the end of the year, there's two specific ones I want to focus on, which in order for us to really live a very good and fulfilling life, you have to do two things. One is you have to develop really good clarity of mind, really good judgment, and you have to be leveraged, you know? And in order to do that, you have to work hard at both those things. So what does it mean to have leverage, and what does it mean to have clarity of mind? Well, let me break down the two. Now, let's start with leverage. So what does it mean to have leverage? Well, in this time and age, as you can tell, the world and the market is constantly changing so much. So maybe you develop a very specific skill set in one certain area, but that area changes. For example, let's say you get good at a certain type of, let's say, manual work, for example. But what happens if that job changes? Can you transfer those skills to something else? Now, this is where you start building a talent stack, something that Scott Adams talks a lot about in his book, How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big, where essentially you develop these skills and talents that you can stack up that by themselves aren't that important or maybe that meaningful. Maybe you're an average writer and an average comedian, but you combine those things together, you become more powerful and at a higher class of individual that you can leverage yourself into a variety of opportunities. Scott, with all due respect, is not the world's funniest person, and he's definitely not the world's greatest comic. His words, not mine. But when you combine those two things together, including the fact that he knows how to write persuasively, he's become one of the world's most famous and well-recognized syndicated cartoonists. And so when it comes to leverage, there's really three types of leverage out there. There's labor, which is you get human beings to work for you. It's the oldest form of leverage. There's capital, which is you have a lot of money and you can use that money to deploy it however you'd like. Now, the third and final and newest form of leverage is products with little to no marginal cost for replication. What does that mean? Well, coding is the most obvious example, but I don't know how to code, neither do you. Well, maybe you do. But other ideas is like having a blog, creating videos, developing a podcast, like things that require nobody else's permission, requires no capital. It just requires your time, and then they can scale over time. For example, my book review videos, that's something that has little to no marginal cost for replication, and it's something that I can really own and brand my own. And from that, I can leverage that into a variety of opportunities, whether it's getting access to somebody like Eric, who I've become friends with, and now I've learned his process on writing a book like this, or perhaps gaining mentorship, or even getting opportunities to get in, let's say, from an investment standpoint early on with certain startups, right? There's a variety of ways that you could do this. Perhaps it's developing a brand on Twitter, or becoming really well known for developing, let's say, do-it-yourself videos. There's a variety of ways. And the whole point of this new type of leverage is that you can just multiply your efforts without having anybody's help, without having any capital, no nothing. The only thing that's really a factor is whether or not you're willing to start shipping and doing the work yourself, and then showing up on a consistent basis. And the second thing is clarity of mind, or clear thinking. So what does that exactly mean? Well, if you think about it, there's a lot of people out there when they try to explain a concept, and this is a very simple example, they use a lot of fancy words. You can tell that they've memorized things and they're just parroting, right? But the ones who are really clear thinkers, who actually know what they're talking about, are the ones who are able to distill down concisely a very complicated concept and explain it even to a child. Let me give you a perfect example. So Richard Feynman, who's a world famous physicist and just a brilliant teacher and physicist, wrote this book, 6 Easy Pieces, Essentials of Physics Explained by the Most Brilliant Teacher. And this is a very controversial group of lectures, because he essentially took this extremely complicated concept as physics and mathematics and all these things and distilled it down into short books. Many times, like, one of the examples from this book is that he explains mathematics from a very rudimentary application of just line, counting lines, all the way up to algebra and trigonometry, just in a few pages, right? And the reason why he's able to do that is not because he uses fancy words and definitions or memorizing anything. It's because he uses first principle thinking, and he understands the basics so well that he builds on these foundations of logic without having to break the chain, right? And I think I mentioned this because this is really what this book is about. It's about distilling knowledge and wisdom into very actionable and digestible bites, right? Things that you can immediately take action on and that they make sense. And I think the best part about this book, which we owe Eric quite a lot of thanks for this, for getting this knowledge curated, is that it gives you a guide to not only career and professional success, but fulfillment in life, and distills it down into first principle thinking. So that's the book of the week. Make sure you go out and get it. It's a fantastic book. Like I said, I really love reading this, just because from a design perspective and knowledge and wisdom, it's just fantastic. So make sure you go out and get the book. I just love the thought and the way the book was designed. It was really great. You can tell that somebody who's truly innovative and a product leader put this together. Eric, thanks for compiling all this knowledge for us. Go out and follow Eric on Twitter. I'll leave his Twitter handle down below in the notes, and listen to our podcast. Let me know what you think. We want to hopefully have him back on. So happy Wisdom Wednesday. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Be safe this weekend with your family. And as always, I'll see you next week. Bye for now.